Well, thank you again so much for being here. Why don't you start out by telling me a bit about yourself, Josh, and what you do?
Well, my main claim to fame is I'm the world's top hurricane chaser. If you measure by the amount of hurricanes I've been in, where I've really gotten in them, and I've been to date, I've been inside 80 hurricanes on the ground.
Wow.
Around the world. Only about a third of them were in the United States, so covered the entire globe, and that's a world record.
Wow, that's incredible. And tell me about, are you from here on the coast? Where are you from?
No, I'm definitely not from here. I grew up in the New York City area, and I spent most of my adult life in Los Angeles. And I actually started living here on the coast in Bay St. Louis part-time during the pandemic. Like everyone else, I was just looking to get out of the cities. Also during the pandemic, there wasn't really any air travel for a while. So I figured, okay, if I want to be hunting hurricanes, I need to kind of live on the Gulf Coast. So that's what started it. And then, loved living here. I love coastal Mississippi. I really just kind of connected with it. And then about a year ago, built a house here.
Wow. So what sparked your interest in hurricanes?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's just sort of, guys like me who chase professionally, who really, do it as there's like a full-time thing. I think it's, you're kind of just born with a screw loose. It's like it's an obsession that you have from the time you were born, as far back as I could remember. Even when I was a toddler, I would just get excited by any kind of wild weather. My parents noticed it. It was like drugs to me. So it's not like a casual hobby you take up in life, like, oh, I'm going to study business administration. It's like, no, you're just like it's in your blood.
That's very cool. What is the biggest, baddest storm that you've ever been in?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say it's a tie. There's probably two at the top. One was a super typhoon in the Philippines, equivalent to what we would call a Category 5 hurricane. And I was in a typhoon and a hurricane are the exact same thing. It's just what they call it over there. I was in a pretty big city that took a direct hit, and it was kind of like a Katrina-like situation where the entire city went underwater with storm surge. And there were, well, they don't know how many died, but they think it was between 15 and 25,000 in the city. At the height of the storm, I remember, our hotel went underwater, and the people on the first floor were going to drown. And I threw my camera down and jumped in and started, pulling people out of their rooms through the windows because they couldn't open the doors. Thank God we got everyone in the hotel upstairs. But when we came out of the hotel afterward, just bodies all over the place. And that was, that rattled me so badly to see that kind of human impact that I didn't want to chase for a while after that, which is unusual for me, but I was kind of so rattled by it. And then I would say the other one is Hurricane Dorian in the Bahamas, Category 5, took a direct hit in this little town called Marsh Harbor, had sustained winds of 185 miles an hour, which makes it the strongest hurricane on record in North America. And I was trapped there for days afterward. And that was quite an experience.
And tell me about your process, when you're chasing a storm. What is it that you do?
So it always starts with the computer models. So the computer models are kind of like they're the chaser's sort of crystal ball into the future. So you kind of look at those, and the first hint that there's going to be a hurricane are these computer models. They're sort of weather maps of the future, and it could be 2 weeks out. You start to notice, okay, they're showing something, like forming in the Gulf or something like that. Now, a lot of times it's a false positive, but then sometimes it happens, and then there's a disturbance, and then you start to, see it grow. And at a certain point, you have to make a choice whether to chase it or not. Like, if it's right here in the Gulf, it's pretty easy. I just hang out and watch it, and then, get in my car and go at a certain point. If it's in East Asia or Australia, down there, they call them cyclones, by the way. That's what Australians call hurricanes. They call them cyclones. Then it's a bigger decision because there's a lot of money and time involved. Usually I have to pull the trigger a couple of days in advance to get down there in time.
Gotcha. And once you do get down there, what are you doing? What are you documenting? Take me through that.
So my goal is always to get in the eye. That's what I always want to do. And a successful chase is when I get in the eye, or at least in the eye wall, which is the ring of really violent weather that surrounds the eye. That's the core of the hurricane. That's what you want to get in. So it's all about getting inside that. Sometimes it's a fairly straightforward process. You kind of know where it's going to come in. You get to some city, and then you might have to kind of adjust a little bit as the storm's coming ashore. Sometimes it's more complicated. It's actually very hard. Chasing in the United States is very easy compared to other parts of the world because we have infrastructure, roads, a good satellite density, good population density. We have like recon planes flying into it. We got a lot of weather stations. We have we just have good radar network. It's easy. When you're chasing in some developing nations where they don't have, they might not even have paved roads where the hurricane's coming ashore, then it's very challenging. But it's all about just doing what I have to do, even if it's going through the jungles of the Philippines to get inside that eye. And then once I'm in there, a couple things I do. One is, of course, I document it on video. I shoot it. But the other thing is that I collect meteorological data. And a lot of times, because I'm sort of chasing these things down in such remote places, a lot of times the data that I collect inside the storms, like the air pressure data and stuff like that, are the only data that exist. So I'm not a scientist, but I'm the scientist hunting dog, because a lot of times scientists like the guys at the National Hurricane Center will use my data because they don't have any other data from where it came ashore.
I see. So tell me about this upcoming hurricane season, because we are about to go into it. How is it shaping up? What are we anticipating?
Yeah, it's a great question. And of course, it's what everyone wants to know. So big picture, so seasonal forecasting, which is saying how you think an upcoming hurricane season is going to be. That's its own area of specialty, and it's not mine. But I have some friends who are experts in that field, and the general consensus among the folks who I respect is that we are going to have another above normal season. Maybe not hyperactive, but on the busy side, above average. And I should point out, big picture, hurricanes, if you look at the historical data, if you go back 170 years, they kind of come in waves. You'll have a couple of busy decades, and you'll have a couple of slower decades, et cetera, in any given location. Mm-hmm. Right now, we are in an extremely busy Gulf phase. Just the Gulf has been really busy, and most of the hurricanes that hit the United States have been hitting the Gulf, like not the East Coast so much, just like in the Gulf. So the question on my mind is this Gulf phase, this busy Gulf phase, is it going to continue? It started around 2017, where we just started getting hammered again and again. I would say here in coastal Mississippi, out of all the states, we've gotten, I don't want to say lucky, but we've gotten off pretty easy. We've only had 2 direct hits. One was Nate in 2017, which was just a category 1. And then we got swiped hard by Zeta in 2020, which I think everyone, including me, including the expert, was surprised how strong Zeta was in coastal Mississippi. You too?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm from Ohio, so this is a whole new thing for me. And that was, I've been here 7 years now. My husband actually flies with the Hurricane Hunter unit at Keesler.
Oh, wow.
And that was quite shocking, because we have a friend who's a meteorologist with Keesler who was expecting a tropical storm. So that's what everyone was thinking. And sure enough, that really was way stronger. And if I recall correctly, and correct me if I'm mistaken, I think it was retroactively a Cat 3 when they looked at everything.
It was a category 3 in Louisiana. By the time it got to us, it was a 2, but it was in coastal Mississippi. The impact was category 2, but it was a solid 2. And listen, I'm obviously, I've been in a lot of hurricanes. If you get the strong part of a category 2, you get pounded pretty hard. I was surprised how strong. I decided to ride that out in the house I was renting in Bay St. Louis, and because it just basically came to us. And I remember thinking wow, this thing's got a punch. And in the Bay, we got really raked. I mean, their buildings lost their roofs and stuff. I mean, didn't last long, as you probably remember, but it was usually hurricanes last much longer than that. It was basically a 45-minute event. But yeah, that was whoa. But big picture, so in this 8-year phase of crazy Gulf hurricane activity, I would say Mississippi has been on the lucky side. Now, I'd say we deserve the break because you look back in history, this is the 20th anniversary this year of Hurricane Katrina. Coastal Mississippi was ground zero for that event, which is just in a lot of ways the worst hurricane in American history. And then going back to 1969, Category 5 Hurricane Camille, second strongest hurricane in American history, made landfall right in Waveland Bay, St. Louis. And so we have a distinction as having had some of the worst. So maybe we deserve to get off easy.
And long may it continue.
Exactly.
So the other things that I had to ask you, what are 5 or more practical preparation tips for those who are here on the coast? And ideally, some that even if you're from this area or aren't a newbie, that maybe you aren't necessarily thinking about.
I would say that what I always recommend to people is really just kind of look at your house and think about how you can upgrade it and fortify it for hurricanes. Because here's an interesting thing I've noticed. I've chased hurricanes all over the world, and in other parts of the world, they have different building standards, different ways of building. And one thing I've noticed in Japan and Taiwan, where they get really strong typhoons all the time. And again, a typhoon is a hurricane, same thing. You'll go through what we would call a Category 4 storm, and you come outside afterward and you'll see very little damage. Like you might see a broken window or a crooked sign. The cars are thrown all over the place like toys because they have these little cars, but the buildings do remarkably well. So what that told me is, okay, we can coexist with hurricanes. We just need to learn how to sort of build for them. And of course, I'm talking about the wind. Storm surge is something else. Storm surge, you just got to be high enough. And wherever your house is where it is. It's going to be hard to kind of fix that. But in terms of the house that you have, I would say a few things. One is look at the roof. If your roof stays on during a hurricane, you're going to be okay. If it tears off, it's like game over. Your house is going to get like trashed. So I always say, really look at your roof, and there's ways to okay, I'm sorry. I got some feedback there. I'll just look at your roof, because there's ways that you can sort of fortify it or improve it. You can make sure it's strapped down. You can re-roof. There's things you could do, but I would say absolutely prioritize your roof. Second thing is look at your windows. Windows are the Achilles heel of houses. And what's really interesting is it's not just because you don't want you want to protect your windows, not because you're worried about broken glass and rain getting in, but once you have a broken window in a hurricane, if the wind can get inside the building, it's like a balloon. It could do additional damage because the wind gets in. So you want to keep that wind in. So with your windows, either make sure that your windows are impact glass or have some kind of shutter system so that you can easily cover and protect them when a hurricane is coming. And then the third thing I would say is look at the siding on your house. What kind of siding do you have? I have fiber cement siding, James Hardy. It's like a coat of armor that protects the house. And one thing I've noticed in many hurricanes is the really severe ones. The flying debris is like flying missiles. It can go through walls and stuff. And so and I've seen it happen. I've been inside a house where stuff came through the wall driven by the wind. So you want to make sure you have good siding that's really solid. So those are a few things there. If you're building a new home, I would say it's all about elevation. Everything's about elevation. And one problem in coastal Mississippi is that we don't have a lot of elevation. Everything's really low. Some areas have more elevation than others. For example, Bay St. Louis, downtown Bay St. Louis is fairly high. It's like around 23 feet, 25 feet, whereas downtown Waveland does not have much elevation. And it's why it doesn't really kind of have a downtown anymore because of what happened in Katrina, and it's hard to rebuild. So I would say just make sure, you're sufficiently high to kind of protect yourself from a lot of storm surge.
Sure. Any other practical tips that you have for people as we enter into this season, things that they need to have in their home that maybe might escape their notice or anything like that?
One thing I would say about tracking hurricanes in general, because we live in an era of too much information. Back when I was growing up, the only information you had was what the National Hurricane Center put out, which was then delivered by radio and TV. Now everyone has all these apps on their phone and everyone's looking at the computer models. And the problem there is most people don't know how to read computer models or interpret them or understand them. So you have a lot of people running around with very little knowledge, but a lot of information, and they have information overload and they don't know what they're looking at. So folks all the time are coming to me and saying, hey, what apps should I use to track hurricanes? I'm really concerned about hurricanes. Like, what apps should I use? What computer models should I use? And I tell all of them, no apps, no computer models. You shouldn't be doing any of that. All you need to do is follow the National Hurricane Center. That's their job. Their job is to track the hurricane for you, tell you, these are the experts, and their job is to track it, tell you where it's going and what are the potential threats. So I would say relax, stop trying to interpret computer models. Those are not meant for consumers to be reading. Just, the Hurricane Center, the local National Weather Service office, and of course, what your local officials say, in your town and your county, your local officials will tell you if you need to evacuate or if you need to worry. Or you could, of course, follow me on social media, iCyclone, letter I, word cyclone. I'll tell you also, but those official sources are the best ones.
Gotcha. Do you have any other advice for people who are weighing, should I stay? Should I go? Will I be okay riding it out, or should I get out of here?
It's a great question. So I always tell people when a hurricane's coming, there's two things you want to be sure of. And one is that your house is high enough to escape the water, the storm surge, the Gulf coming in, and that it's strong enough to withstand the wind. So there's two things you got to worry about: your elevation, to be high enough above the water, and the sort of sturdiness of the house to withstand the wind speed, because either could get you. If you have a doubt about either of those two things, then leave.
And do you have any other advice for newcomers to this area who are sort of not familiar with, the two big H's of this area, which are, hurricanes and humidity, and both of those are really hard for some, some non-locals to adjust to?
Yeah, I would say I've noticed there's a big difference in attitudes toward hurricanes between people who have been through a bad one and people who have not. It's like two different categories of people. And when I say been through a bad hurricane, I mean you really went through it, like the eye wall, the core, the really bad part, not like you were in the outer part. What I've noticed is if folks have not been in a hurricane, a lot of times they could be a little sort of a little cocky about it, like, oh yeah, whatever. They think it's like a rainstorm. Like a lot of people don't even, like, who are new to when they're new to a hurricane area, they're not even clear on what a hurricane is. They're like, okay, it's something, there's water, right? It rains a lot. Is that what it is? And kind of like there's big waves or something. Like they don't even know what it is. Once and they might just kind of blow it off or not take it seriously. Once they've been through a direct hit from a bad one, normal people, not weirdos like me, but normal people will generally be like, okay, whoa, wow, like I am never doing that again. Like next time one's coming, I am out of here, because it's a weird, scary thing being in a hurricane. Just like the force of the wind, the sound of it, being in your house and it starts to shake from the force of the wind, the banging sounds. It's, as debris is crashing into the house, it's scary for normal people, and most people afterward don't want to go through that. So I would say, if you don't completely understand what a hurricane is, just follow the advice, and if you're told to leave, get out. You'll be glad that you did.
Very good. Is there anything else that you'd like to share that I have not asked you?
Nope. I think you've gotten a lot of tidbits out of me, so I think I'm dry for now.
Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.